समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
It's been 4 days since truce was called between the Gen Z protesters in New Delhi and the central government, followed by the resignation of the Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan. Events are moving in different directions. The important thing that happened today was that Parliament, at least Lok Sabha, started the debate on issues emerging from both the students' protests, police action, but also more at a deeper level, issues emerging from examination leakages. The latest provocation is the NEET UG leakage in 2026, which followed the NEET UG leakage in 2024, but examination paper leakages have now been quite routine for a long time, and these cause a lot of distress. That is something we spoke about in the earlier episode, and also something that I featured in my last national interest, of which we'll share a copy with you with the description. However, in the debate itself, the clutter is not there because each side is making its own point. We will see what emerges as the debate goes on. Questions, however, emerge from what happened during these protests and the police action to push them back, to push the protesters back. Because a lot of what's happening today actually is rooted in what happened on July 20. That was the day when the protesters had announced a march to Parliament, and Parliament session, the monsoon session, was beginning. We know what happened that morning. This started around 11:30. A series of events took place after that, at the end of which by around 4:30, between 3:30 and 4:30, lots of tear gas was used. I will tell you precisely how much. Multiple lathi charges were carried out, and also 2 shots were fired from a pellet gun. 2 shots from a pellet gun, or what the police forces call ARG, or the anti-riot gun. Those pellet injuries have now landed up in Supreme Court of India. So multiple people have filed petitions in Supreme Court of India. Some because they say they are victims of pellet injuries. In one significant petition, Yashovardhan Azad, a very senior and respected former police officer and former Special Director, Intelligence Bureau, he has filed a case along with victims of pellet injuries. While they seek accountability for police action, they are also demanding a ban on the use of pellets, or at least on the use of lethal pellets. So pellets are now making significant news. What we are going to do today is step away from party politics, which is taking place in Parliament. We'll track it. Our reporters are tracking it almost minute by minute or blow by blow. That we will see how it goes, because it will go on for the next couple of days. We'll look at some facts. First of all, we will try and understand when were the pellets used, who used the pellets, what was the sequence of events. I know that you generally know the picture, but you don't know precisely what happened. At least I don't know. I also had to read up and also take these copious notes with me, given by my colleague Ananya Bhardwaj, who heads internal security coverage for us. And it is only by understanding this sequence that we will then come to who used these and under what authorization. Then what is the process? What is the force that used it? What is the composition of the force? How is it different from any other police force, or say any other central armed police force or paramilitary force, as we loosely call them? Who commands them? And then we'll tell you what are these pellets and what are the guns that these are fired with, and also the record of the use of pellet guns in India, because it's not that old. The first time pellet guns were used in India was in 2010 in Jammu and Kashmir. Remember, that's when the UPA was in power, and that was a season of big time stone throwing in Kashmir, particularly in Srinagar. There was enormous rounds of stone throwing, and that's when the paramilitary forces or CAPFs had used pellet guns for the first time. Since then, the pellets and the use of pellet guns has also undergone many changes. I will bring you those details as we go along. So first of all, what happened on 20th of July? At 11:30 or 11:35 a.m., 20th of July, police for the first time opened a lathi charge against protesters who were attempting to break the barricades put right up outside Parliament Street Police Station. We've drawn a map. Please see that map. We'll try and give you an idea of what happened. That's a very busy part of New Delhi. Also, the most protected zones in all of India, particularly on the day a new parliament session is opening. All of that is within 1 kilometer periphery of the Prime Minister's house, of Rashtrapati Bhavan, of the houses of most key cabinet members and other officials, armed forces chiefs, etc., etc. So very high security zone. 11:35, police started lathi charge against a crowd that was trying to push through or break the barricades put up there. These barricades had been welded together. Those pictures had appeared in the media a day earlier. The police was welding them together, so these could not be moved. Now, as you might have heard from Praveen Jain, our photo editor, in that discussion we did with our entire group, with our entire team that covered 20th of July, he believes that people who came up in front, they also had lathis, they were from another group. They were not from the group of Gen Z protesters. They came in, they tried to force their way through the barricades broke, then the crowds turned into a side street by the side of a building and tried to come in through there. That street was also barred. When police thought that barricades were being broken and these crowds will reach Parliament House because they were so close to Parliament House, that's when they used a lathi charge. At 12:11, that is 36 minutes later, another round of lathi charge was carried out, this time by Rapid Action Force. As we go along, I will tell you what is Rapid Action Force. Rapid Action Force and the Delhi police together when protesters tried bypassing the barricades through a government building. There's a government building on the left-hand side of the road that was also blocked. So that was the second lathi charge. At the same time, hundreds of protesters broke through the barricades and reached right outside the Parliament complex near the Central Secretariat Police Station. Remember, the first is the Parliament Street Police Station. The next is the Central Secretariat Kendriya Sachivalaya Police Station. That's where tear gas was used, and once again another lathi charge took place. That is where Praveen Jain was at that point, and he messaged me saying, lathi charge or tear gas, dono ho gaye. From there, the crowds were dispersed and they reached towards Connaught Place. Now, they were still not in the inner circle of Connaught Place. They were still around the outer circle because that's closer to Parliament, and they were congregating or collecting near the beginning of Parliament Street. Once again, look at the map and you can understand this better. These crowds were followed by the RAF, contingents of the RAF and Delhi police personnel. This is where the situation escalated and RAF again responded with tear gas shelling. I will tell you the exact number as we go along. Just give me a couple of minutes. Between 3:30 and 4:30, that's the key period. Between 3:30 and 4:30, the stretch between Palika Bazaar area and the inner circle. Again, see the map. If you are from Delhi, then you know it already. That's where the Rajiv Chowk metro station is. That's where you go inside, go underneath and go to the metro station. It is in that stretch between Palika Bazaar in the inner circle now and Sansad Marg that goes to Jantar Mantar area. That is where pellet guns were fired. There are 5 identified victims as of now. A general diary entry of Parliament Street Police Station gives us the details, and those are the details we have. How many shells fired? That's a normal policing practice. At the end of the day, they have to make these entries, including those of bullets fired, if there are any bullets fired. In all of this, no bullets were fired. No bullets were fired of any kind. We have to be very accurate. Pellets were fired. 2 pellet shots were fired. No bullets were fired. What was fired was 55 non-electrical shells. Non-electrical shells are like old-fashioned tear gas shells, of the kind of tear gas shells I might have seen or I have seen in my days as a reporter all over the country. These tear gas shells were lobbed with those little gun kind of things with wide barrels. They reached some distance, fell down, and with impact, they burst. These are mechanical shells, mechanically activated. These are also heavy. If they come and hit you like a projectile, they can cause quite a bit of injury. People have broken bones. People have suffered head injuries because they got struck by a live tear gas shell. These are non-electrical shells. Then there are electrical shells. Electrical shells, as the name indicates, these are charged or sparked by electric current within the shells. These are fired by specialized electric shell guns. These guns are usually mounted on trucks. 15 of these shells were fired, electrical shells, tear gas shells. 5 tear smoke grenades. Grenades are what somebody picks up and hurls. That's when crowds get really close. Then you do that. 5 smoke grenades were fired. So a total of 55 plus 15, that is 70 plus 5, 75 smoke shells of various kinds were fired, but by one unit of rapid action force. And then one person from the same unit used the pellet gun issued to him and fired 2 rounds. Round means 1 bullet. People think round means 8 or 10 एक round होता है, ऐसे नहीं. A round in ballistic language is 1 bullet. So when you fire 1 bullet, you fired 1 round. So he fired 2 rounds or 2 pellet shots from his ARG or anti-riot gun. Those pictures you've seen.
The ammunition mentioned in the DD entry at Parliament Street pertains only to what was used in that area. There could have been additional tear gas shells or a few pellets used elsewhere, which is currently a matter of inquiry.
Each company of the Rapid Action Force, the company is about 100 to 120 people. Each company of the Rapid Action Force is issued 2 of these pellet guns. That's a standard issue. However, this use has to be authorized. It does look like from the diary entry that somebody authorized the use of these tear gas shells, lathicharge, and also 2 shots from a pellet gun. Now, RAF said they did not authorize it, and RAF has taken that constable off duty and an investigation is carried out. These appeals, these petitions in the Supreme Court are saying there should be a ban on pellet guns. First of all, investigate what happened, give us compensation, and bring in a ban on pellet guns. Now, who gave the authorization for use of this force? We have to understand that. The procedure for riot control is laid down by Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Samhita, BNSS, or what used to be CRPC, because that provides the method and approach. Under that, unless you are in a region which is under Armed Forces Special Powers Act, which most definitely Delhi isn't, any police force, use of any force has to be authorized by a magistrate, an executive magistrate. Since Delhi is a police commissionerate, that's why the police officers also have executive magistrates' powers. So DCP North Delhi, for example, who was in charge there, he exercised his powers as executive magistrate and authorized the use of force of various kinds, and that listed all these various methods. He did not say specifically fire the pellet guns. He said adequate force should be used for riot control. That is what we need to understand. And the diary entry also registers this, because without authorization, nobody can fire. However, the executive magistrate who's giving this order is not telling you, now you fire this, now you fire this. He's not a platoon commander in a battle carrying a pistol telling his troops to fire on this enemy there, that enemy there. He's given his authorization for the larger action. Before the week ended, even as the truce was being negotiated in Delhi, again pictures came out of Siwan in Bihar. In Bihar we saw in Siwan, which is unfortunately infamous for a long time because of its own Kalashnikov culture, AK-47 culture. Siwan is the Karam Bhumi, quote unquote, of gangster Shahabuddin. Shahabuddin used to walk around with people guarding him with AK-47s. He also merrily ran his empire from jail, where he was locked up for a long time. It is in Siwan that you've seen the videos of a policeman, a Bihar policeman running forward. He's like sprinting. He's not aiming at anything. He's sprinting, but he's firing from his AK-47. Now, to fire an AK-47 at a crowd in India has not been seen anywhere. AK-47 will be fired at a terrorist or when there was a threat from somebody in a crowd who was firing from firearms. In fact, the current drill of Indian police forces and Central Armed Police Forces also is that unless you are threatened by firearms from a crowd, you cannot use firearms. In this case, this man is running with an AK-47. Police have taken him off and suspended him. Police also claim that he was firing aimlessly or firing a little bit in the air, so he didn't hit anybody. But there is one person in Bihar who claims that he was hit in the leg by one of these bullets. So that's again an ongoing situation. All of these complicated things and built up this anger. Now, a couple of things we are trying to understand. One, what is Rapid Action Force? Rapid Action Force, you see them wearing the blue. That's a very distinct uniform. There are some forces with distinct uniforms. They don't conform with the khaki or olive green routine that other paramilitary forces and armed forces have. This is blue-gray. They are called out specifically for riot control. They were founded in October 1992, that far back. They are not a new force. They are also not a separate force. They are a specialized riot control force. In fact, they are called a zero response force, which means they should be available at zero time frame. They should be available at any time. They are only meant for riot control. Founded in October 1992, today has about 15 battalions. The force is located within the CRPF. It's not a separate Central Armed Police Force. It's a wing of the CRPF. It is headed by an Inspector General, a senior officer. In this case, it's a woman officer, Seema Dhundia, IPS 1994 batch of Haryana cadre. On the day the protests took place, the RAF had 8 companies in Delhi. One company is about 120 people, and usually one battalion might have 5 companies. It can vary. There is no hard and fast rule there, but 8 companies that day. By this point, more RAF companies have been brought in. So at this point, Delhi has 15 companies of the RAF. Founded in 1992, a wing of the CRPF, of which it's a small percentage. It's 15 battalions, I told you. CRPF itself has 240 battalions. The smallest unit of RAF is led by an inspector, and each RAF team has 3 different elements. One element is for riot control. You can presume that they have their shields and their lathis. The second is the tear smoke element. They carry the wherewithal for firing tear gas shells. And third is the fire element. Fire element might have rifles for firing live ammunition if needed, or pellet guns. I told you each company of RAF has 2 pellet guns. In this case, 1 pellet gun was used to fire 2 shots. They also carry water cannons. They have a unit also carrying water cannons and also colored water. The idea of colored water is that, one, people don't like to get their clothes ruined. Second, colored water can irritate you, get in your eyes. It's more dissuasive. And third, because water will first hit the leaders, people in front, it can be later used to identify the leaders of a crowd. Again, water cannons have to be used from 75 meters, because if you get closer, they can cause injury because water comes out under great strength. And if it is used within 25 to 30 meters, it can knock a grown-up human being down. Again, for firearms, there is a drill that you only use firearms, actual bullets, if you are threatened with actual bullets or actual firearms, and even then try and aim low in the body so as not to cause fatalities. I would say that over time, over the past 10 years or so, deaths in police firing in India have declined. I'm not saying they are not there, but they have declined. Nobody should be hurt, and definitely nobody should lose a limb or an eye, or nobody should die in police action in any protest or riot. In the ideal world, everything should be peaceful. We don't live in an ideal world, but in India, I would say the extent of death and injury has declined over time, because when you have the army, etc., using really angry, indiscriminate methods, then those weapons can cause a lot of damage and a lot of fatalities. It's sort of ironical that I'm saying all this on a day when we've seen multiple firings in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir in their election process, where, as I started recording this, at least 20 confirmed deaths had been reported. Riot control is a policing job. It's a specialized policing job. It is not the army's job anywhere, because the army is trained to treat any adversary as an enemy. Then the minimum force an army can use is automatic rifles. And that's when you have the kind of result that you are seeing in Pakistan occupied Kashmir right now. Now, 5 victims have come of pellet injuries in India. The pellets have had a checkered history in India. 2010, they were used for the first time, I told you, in Kashmir during the days of stone throwing. Then they came back. They came back in 2016 when again massive riots and stone throwing followed the death of the killing of Burhan Wani, who was a Hizbul Mujahideen commander. At that point, a lot of pellets were used and they became very controversial. That is when Rajnath Singh, Home Minister then, Defense Minister now, Home Minister then, he made a statement in Parliament saying that the use of pellet guns had killed one protester in Kashmir and had caused injury to many others, including to the eyes of 53 protesters. That is 2016. And he also said that government was looking for more non-lethal methods. Then the next round of extensive pellet gun use took place after the action on Article 370 in August 2019, or after August 2019. Then also quite a few injuries took place, but fewer than in 2016. That's because some changes have been carried out and some changes have been subsequently carried out. Now the pellet gun comes with a deflector. The deflector is fitted on top of the barrel. So when the shot is fired, pellets don't spread like this horizontally, but they are directed downward. So pellets don't go and hit people's chest, face, eyes, or brains, because we've seen cases where pellets have lodged in people's brains, not in Delhi this time, these are stories from elsewhere. Pellets have lodged in somebody's brain, next to somebody's brain, or somebody's spine as well. With the deflector, the gun directs the pellets downwards, so that pellets, if anything, only hit the lower half of people's bodies, so it becomes more a deterrent than something that causes grave injury. However, it's quite clear that in this case, the pellet gun that was used did not have the deflector on. The second change that's been carried out is that pellet guns now, which were earlier pure lead, they now come with a plastic tip. So what pierces the body is a plastic tip. You have to understand what pellets are and what a pellet gun is. Pellet gun is basically a 12 bore ka gun. Most of you will know a 12 bore gun. 12 bore gun usually is what we used to see, or maybe sometimes we still have them, the security guards bearing outside branches of banks, right? You see a gun, then you see what looks like bullets. Those are the shells or bullets of a pellet gun. Each one contains hundreds of these tiny pellets, 2 to 3 millimeters only. These were all lead earlier. Now, as I told you, these are plastic tips. So what pierces your body is plastic, but remember, inside the plastic is lead. So it still has quite a bit of force. Now what is a 12 bore gun? What is a 12 bore gun? 12 bore gun, basically bore in ballistics means the inside diameter of a gun barrel. In exact terms, it's 18.5 millimeters or 0.729 inches. That is 12 bore. But you know, Americans also call it 12 gauge. Why do they call it 12 gauge? A simple way of understanding what a 12 bore gun is to think of 1 pound of solid lead. If you take 1 pound of solid lead and divide it into 12 identical spheres, that is the exact diameter of each sphere will be that of a 12 bore gun. That's how the definition of 12 bore came in. In this case, each one of these shells has hundreds of these little pieces of lead covered by plastic, which are called pellets. RAF in fact has 2 types of pellet guns. One is the anti-riot gun and the other is the pump action gun. Some of the visuals that we have seen of an RAF cop firing a pellet gun, that looks like a pump action gun. Pump action gun has greater range and greater lethality than an anti-riot gun.